Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm Roisentul, your host, and today I'm going to interview Izzy Rosenzweig. He's a veteran of the DTC industry for over 10 years, who gained recognition by launching his first DTC company, Browze, in 2012. Browze, specializing in home and kitchen products, successfully delivered over 2.5 million packages worldwide after opening his own China-based fulfillment center to improve customer experience. Easy recognized an opportunity to assist other e-commerce brands with direct shipping to their customers, leading to the birth of Portless. With Portless, Easy aims to revolutionize the e-commerce industry by massively improving cash flow and profit margins through direct fulfillment. Hey, Easy, thanks for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have
Hey,
you here.
Brian. Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's get to it. It's a tough time for many DTC brands. Brands of all sizes are struggling nowadays with profitability, as we have recently discussed with Neil Goyal and many other guests on the show. And while we typically discuss marketing strategies to boost it, what other areas can they improve to help boost profitability as well?
100%. And first of all, just to like align on what you're saying, brands do need to learn to be profitable, because unlike 2020 and 2021, capital is no longer free, and you don't have investors and venture capital throwing money at brands. The idea of top line is success while burning money is a thing of the past. That being said, I am still a huge believer in the future of D2C. The demand of the direct consumer market in the US is roughly $176 billion. International is even bigger than that. So customers want what brands have to offer. Just us as brand owners, and because I ran a brand for 10 years, we need to understand how to run our businesses better. And if we do, demand is there. And then everybody wins. Consumers win, and then the providers win, and the brands win. So while, yes, I agree, everyone needs to learn how to be better with cash flow and better with margins. Once we do figure that out, unlock it, and I think there's a lot of strategies coming up out of the sheer need to do it to survive. I think the market as a whole will be in a very strong place over the next 3, 5, 10 years. That being said, so for me, to your point, there is always, most people very often talk about marketing, because marketing very often is the easiest thing to move the needle within overnight. Hey, if you do this trick, your CPMs will go down, or do this, your CTR rates will go up. But what people very often look over is what I call the dirtier part of the business, or the harder part of the business, which is supply chain. And that's where we live. So just to give you context, what we do at Portless. So if you think of a typical brand, let's just say there's a brand that manufactures sweatshirts. In normal supply chain, the way 99.9% of brands run their business, they will manufacture 10,000 t-shirts or sweatshirts. They'd put on a boat, and it takes, for the US market, 60 days to get to the US market by boat. Then they're paying import duties. Then they're putting in a US facility. And only at that point are they selling it to the customer. That means money is tied up for a minimum of 60 days. And that is the dumbest place money could be, on the water where you can't sell your product. But that's the way it's been done, honestly, since 1980s. And then you're selling to your customer. It's a 4 to 7 day delivery, depending if you have East Coast, West Coast, Mid Coast distribution hubs. So that's the way it's been done for a very long time. For us, Portless, we are a supply chain company, logistics company. We say, hey, there's an entirely new way to do business. I like to say this is not an optimization. This is changing the way the game is played. So what we say is, instead of putting on a boat, you could send it to either us or anyone like us. We have facilities in Shenzhen. You're done manufacturing, let's give an example, February 1st. You can move it to us by February 2nd if you're in Guangzhou within the same day. We will inbound it within a day. So that means 3 days post-production, we have your inventory. We have a Shopify app. All of a sudden, your inventory says, hey, you got 5,000 units or 10,000 units, whatever number is. You can start selling. And then you could sell to your customer 3 days post-production. We get the order, let's say February 3rd. We could deliver it to your customer on average of 5.2 days with a 100% local USPS experience. That means your customer get a transaction on February 3rd. On February 4th, they'll get a USPS tracking number. And by February 9th, they have a USPS driver drop the package at their front door. So from a customer's perspective, they just had a very normal direct-to-consumer transaction. They made a transaction. They got their sweatshirt 5.2 days later. Again, very often it's 3 days, but average 5.2. So from a customer perspective, USPS label, USPS driver, 5.2-day delivery, 100% normal experience. Let's talk about the brand. The brand just went from a 60-day lead time to 3-day lead time. They could turn inventory to cash 3 days post-production. That is game-changing for cash flow. Then the question says, do I even need 10,000 sweatshirts? I'm right next to the factory. I can restock with a box or a skid. I don't need to wait for a container. I can restock, go into production. 2 days later, it's restocked. All of a sudden, maybe that 10,000 sweatshirt need, because you always have to think of 3 months on the water or delays, is now 3,000 sweatshirts. Because I could start selling, get some cash, and then reinvest into more inventory. So all of a sudden, lead time is better. Money and capital, money and inventory is less. Let's say you're Christmas season and it's November 10th and you're realizing your black sweatshirt is going to sell out. Well, in traditional model, you missed the season because it would have taken you 60 days. Well, in this model, go back into production. Let's say 10 days later, it's done production. Well, you got a whole Black Friday to capture. You sell it on Black Friday, go back into production. You could still sell more. So the idea to meet supply and demand, less cash need, better cash flow is absolutely game-changing to how brands are run. And that to me is one example. I got 2 more examples we get into soon of how if you play the game differently, if you look at ways to optimize in other parts of your business, you could truly not optimize your business, but I like to say this often, you change the game you're playing in. You're not playing the same game as Walmart. You're playing a different game with them, which allows you to compete.
Is the game changer, or it sounds like it is for DTC brands. Why do you
Yep.
think why do you think they are not leveraging it or leveraging it
It's a
enough?
great question. Fundamentally, because it's so new. So the idea of cross-border logistics has been around for a very long time. It's been around for 10 years. And I've been doing it for since pretty much the inception. However, in the early days of this model, and the classic people think of is like, oh, AliExpress, right? They ship from China. It takes me 3 weeks as Mandarin tracking on it. And I agree, that is a terrible experience. But over the last 3 years, because of companies like Shein and Temu, the logistics has gotten extremely mature. So it's not the same model. The model it is today is what we call direct injection. So the idea to deliver in 5 days with a 100% local experience is only about 2 years old, 2 to 3 years old. And the brands that have been leveraging it are Chinese brands, are Temu, Shein, and brands like that. But American brands could leverage it too. And that is new because to do business in China is very complex. It took us 2 years to set up the legals and the red tape and the operations, but we have it there. And now what we do is hey, we're not doing this for ourselves. We don't have to run a brand anymore. We just built the infrastructure where any American, and by the way, it's not only American, we have customers in the Netherlands and UK and Australia and Canada. Any brand can leverage this model for their local market and change the way it's done. So essentially, the model is only about 2 to 3 years old, and the brands have been leveraging until now are mainly Chinese brands for themselves, and we've built infrastructure to allow non-Chinese brands to leverage it as well. And we are specialists in making sure that the consumer that gets your package always experience a local experience. They have no idea it came from China. From their perspective, we have 6 distribution centers in the States, one in London, one in Australia, different parts of Europe, etc. That's what we specialize in.
It's awesome. And to your point, what you were saying initially about the marketing side, I think that brands have neglected the other side, the non-marketing side of the equation for a long time because everything they cared about, or many of them cared about, was revenue, top line revenue, right? Because it was COVID, the demand was high. They were enjoying the good old days, let's say, of selling online, and nothing else mattered until they until they faced the reality, right? Cost going up, inflation, recession, supply chain issues. So many brands are trying to optimize the costs, but there's a trap there they need to avoid as well because they have 2 options. On one side, they can reduce costs, but at some point, which cost they reduce will affect or not positively or negatively the equation. If they, let's say, stop spending on ads or an email or their marketing, probably their sales will go down, right? But on the flip side, if they cut costs on places that the one you're mentioning, that's a smart move, right? It doesn't only cut costs, but also reduces the lead time, as you said. And I cannot tell you how many times I had customers that they missed very important seasons for them, not only Black Friday, Cyber Monday, very important seasons because of lack of inventory.
Yep.
Sometimes they miss the entire season, or sometimes mid sale they run out and they were like screaming all over the place because they ran out of product and they couldn't sell anymore. We even did an
100.
episode of that with a 8-figure brand. So this is not for brands starting out only. This happened firsthand. I saw it for to an 8-figure brand.
Oh yeah, I would actually argue, even to your point, even more. This model is not meant for emerging brands. This model is meant for brands that are doing, I would say, north of at least 1 million, ideally even 5 million plus. To your point, I'll explain why. Distribution, marketing, or I like to call it distribution, is the most important thing you have to crack. So the first thing you do is you have an idea, and you're going to manufacture a sweatshirt. You love the sweatshirt, your family loves the sweatshirt, your friends love the sweatshirt. It's a great product. Okay, now you got to figure out how you're doing distribution. In the world of e-commerce, that's digital distribution. So you're going to go online, go on Facebook, and you do ads. Until you crack that code, it doesn't really matter what happens in the back end, because until you know how to sell your product, no supply chain will save you, right? You actually have to understand how to do marketing. And again, digital marketing is a digital way to sell your product. You might want to sell it to retail stores. You might want to do wholesale, however you do it, right? End of the day, you got to learn how to sell your product. Once you sell your product, and now let's say, and an example I give often is, I don't know if, in the book I talk about often is the story of Philip Knight, founder of Nike. The more successful he got, the less cash he had. The less cash he had, he always went bankrupt, right? Success brings problems. So until you have so-called success, until you have an ability to sell your product again and again and again that makes sense, that's really where you want to concentrate. Once you learn how to sell your product, you're selling 1,000 orders a month, 5,000 orders, 20,000 orders a month. Then you can start layering in how you run the back end of your business to optimize even better. Because if you can't figure out distribution, nothing else matters. Once you figure out distribution, great product distribution, then we can help you go from a bad cash flow business to a great cash flow business. We can help you go from a small profit margin business to a great profit margin business. So distribution is why so many people talk about it, because so much of it is emerging brands. Once they crack distribution, that's where I think adding on the magic of efficiency supply chain will take it from a very hard business to run to an incredible business to run.
That's exactly true. So, how do you think that? I mean, this doesn't only help brands with the lead time, as you said, but it also helps with the unit economics because they don't need to manufacture, I don't know, thousands of products. They can only manufacture only a few of them. Could you speak more about the minimums, more or less, like
Yep.
for any brand listening, like, okay, this sounds too good to be true. What are the requirements? Is it way more expensive to do this way than the usual way? Could you please talk a little bit about that?
Great question. So we first talked about prior the advantages of cash flow, but your question is, great, cash flow is good, but am I spending more money? Am I losing money on this? And the answer to that is absolutely not. You're actually improving your margins. And the way that's done is in multiple ways. So first of all, there's no container cost in this model because you ship it to us in Shenzhen and we do air cargo across the world. Second thing, so no container costs. Then our warehousing in China is just simply cheaper than any warehousing you find in the States. Our pick and pack rates are always cheaper than US pick and pack rates. Import duties essentially goes away. If we're shipping a product to your end customer in the United States under the law of Section 321, as long as the package is under $800, it is import duty free. So for apparel brands, you might pay between 12 to 43% import duties. That, the moment you use this model, goes away. And all of a sudden, and that goes to your bottom line. So you're not only saving container costs, you're not only paying cheaper for warehousing, you have cheaper pick and pack, you have no import duties or duties. So what you could do is you could use that money do more marketing, do more partnerships, invest in more staff, whatever it is to grow your business, but we will improve your profit margin. Now, all that is great and true, or at least our model. One other thing has to be true is that your product has to be on the smaller and lighter end. So if your product is very bulky, our model isn't great because we got to put stuff on air cargo planes. And if you're selling furniture, it's not built for this model. You should import it. However, apparel brands, cosmetic brands, jewelry brands, electronic brands, accessory brands, all those brands, if your stuff are, our starting rate door to door from our end to the customer end for quarter pound is roughly $5, just over $5 to the US market. So, half a pound, $6. But if it's very bulky, then it gets very expensive. But if you are what I call our ideal customer profile, which is manufacturing China and selling lighter weight stuff, you'll have all these advantages: no import duties, no container costs, cheaper warehousing, cheaper pick and pack, and cost-effective shipping rates, as long as you fit in this bucket. So we'll help you save money, improve your margins.
That's awesome. Something else I would like to touch base on is 3PLs.
Yep.
I know that many brands struggle with this and to find an ideal partner, with this. And I know that having the right partner can make or break a business. What's your thought on that?
Yeah. We take that honestly very, very serious. So when we are the logistics arms of many, many people's businesses. Now, a business is only as successful as A, great product, but B, that you could actually deliver the product to your end consumer. So if we consider ourselves the next most important partner, like A, your manufacturing, you got to make sure your product, but then we're logistics arm. We are one of your most important partners of your business. And we take that with a lot of responsibility. And unfortunately, not every logistics partner will take that responsibility. I do think, again, I was fortunate in the fact that I started in the consumer business. I ran a brand. I understand the pain points of brand owners. And because of that, I knew that when I was going to service other brand owners, I knew all the pain points and knew the problems. And I also knew how important communication was and how there is no risk of, you cannot take a risk of a customer experience. Everything has to follow through as seamless as possible. So what we encourage our customers, even if you don't use those, you're selling furniture, go to the States, make sure that your partner, your 3PL, your logistics partner, understands how important their responsibility is. Because if they take it for granted or they don't understand the importance of customer experience and the way a customer opens a package and gets it delivered, that will fundamentally destroy the brand. You have the best product in the world. You can't deliver properly, or you have bad communication with 3PL. That is a very scary place to be. So no matter who you use, us or anywhere else, that make sure that person understands how important you are to the customer experience. You're in the back end, but the customer experiences you with every single delivery. And that is, we take that very, very seriously.
Exactly. So on this show, we try to cover every single angle we can of the customer journey, and of course for the brands as well. You have the marketing, customer acquisition, retention. You have
Yep.
the logistics. You have the CX. We had on the podcast the CX, the head of CX at Pura Vida. The Pura Vida bracelets. And he discussed at length the importance of customer success and how it integrates with every other area of the company, from marketing to logistics and everything else. So I think it's really important that for brands not only to pay attention to their ads, but also to, of course, this side of the equation. And as you said, and I agree, you are probably the most important partner in their business. So I agree. So I know you specialize, or you typically work with established brand with larger volumes. But for those getting started, I know you are a seasoned entrepreneur. As you said, you run your own e-commerce brand for 10 years, as you said in the intro as well. So I wanted to ask you I mean, you are in both sides of the equation, let's say, or you were in one for many years and now you are in the other. What could you say to those brands starting out or looking to probably moving uh, their manufacturing process to China? How do you think they can get started? What advice could you give them?
So I think for brands to get started, from at least our perspective, is you always want to like crawl, walk, run. And I think that applies to many different areas. Like, marketing, you want to test something, it works, then you scale hard. And we've had scenarios when I was building my brand where we took a big bet too early and it fell apart. So, and we had tons of inventory that costs money. We had to sell it for pennies on the dollar. So I think what's interesting, what's happening in China right now is, in general, the market is a lot tougher from the real estate and manufacturing went down, which in one hand, is unfortunate for the market in China. It's a pretty tough market right now. But for brands getting started, that's actually an advantage. You can now negotiate lower MOQs than you probably could have ever negotiated in the past. So I would encourage, when you talk to the factories, negotiate lower MOQs, making sure that you could test it, prove the theory, prove the thesis, then ramp up. And then even at scale, like we talk to businesses that are publicly traded, and how you apply that in our model, even if you're at scale and you're selling, whatever it is, $50,000 a month, but you want to try new product lines. Well, historically, you would have to put on a boat, wait 90 days, take a big bet, be more agile, be more nimble, and say, hey, we'll take, 100 units, sell it. It does well, ramp up to 1,000 units. It sells well, ramp up to 10,000 units. So I think for me, it's like preserve cash, be very careful with cash, negotiate lower MOQs, test it, prove the thesis, and then scale away. But this way you can start cutting out bad investments and protect yourself from all that downside, which adds up.
Great advice. How would you recommend them find the few first manufacturers?
Yep, I think Alibaba is still actually two. Alibaba is a great place as an open marketplace. There is another brand I'm a big fan of called Factor Quality. They do QC on the factory floor, but they also have a network of a lot of factories. They've need introductions. You could speak to their network of factories, but they probably cover, I don't know, let's say 2,000 or 3,000 factories. But if you want to find products that maybe not under their umbrella, Alibaba is still a great place to start. Again, it's a little riskier because it's a marketplace. You got to make sure you're doing a bit of research, making sure they have good ratings. But that's the place to start. Negotiate as hard as possible. And I think the openness for negotiation has never been stronger from the manufacturing side.
Great. What's next for Portless?
Yeah. So I think, well, one thing I will add to the Portless model, which we didn't cover. One was amazing cash flow. Two was increasing your margins. Three is going global. And I think you know very well about going global. You're in Argentina, you do business in the US. And for me, I'm a huge fan of this world is a lot smaller than over time, the world's getting smaller and smaller. And businesses should be doing what I say a healthy business should be doing a minimum 30% outside their core market. Now, historically, to do that, you would have to pay DHL $40 a package to move from US to Europe, or you would need to move inventory to all across the world. And some countries will have dead inventory and some countries will do well. So on our end, we help customers go global as well. So with this one hub in Shenzhen, not only can we improve your margins to the US and improve your cash flow, but we could do the same model to 50 countries. We have Royal Mail to the UK. We have Australia Post to Australia. So all of a sudden you could work with an agency, a marketing partner. There's cheaper CPMs in these places, cheaper CTRs, better CTRs, cheaper CPCs, cost per clicks. And we take care of all the customs clearance. There's import duty free thresholds, all these countries, really helping brands not only take their own market, but increase net revenue to customers that want to buy your stuff. Historically, it's been complex, and we just make it dead simple. So for us, we are onboarding brands, let's call it doing at least north of $1 million, help them with cash flow, help them with gross margin, and help them go global, starting at $5 to Europe, $6 to Australia versus the current 20 to $40 with DHL. So we're in the early days. And also to what I said before, we are massive believers in DTC. So DTC in 2022, public markets hurt them, or let's say the stocks went down a lot. But what the market is not saying is the demand is still there. And what you said is because of lack of capital, it's making businesses healthier. We're finding ways to run our businesses more lean, more agile, better supply chains. And I do think between the marketing improvements, supply chain improvements, better cash flow models, we're in the early days of an incredible DTC market over the next 10 to 15 years.
I agree 100%. as you said and I said before, I think it's very important for brands to learn how to live without that capital. I mean, capital is not bad at all. It is bad
Yep.
to have an unhealthy business and use capital to keep growing it despite of that, right? So if you have a healthy business and you add capital, you can grow it even further, but it needs to be healthy first. And about the Nike, the founder of Nike, I read the book as well. And yes, it seemed that he was poorer every time he was more successful, right? He was about to
Exactly.
go bankrupt every time he was getting one
Easy.
step closer to what he is today, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So awesome. So I don't know if you answered this, but just in case for it to be clear for the audience and for me as well, what's next for Portless as a company? I mean, you're doing a lot already. You're on a mission of helping of helping brands, going international, reducing cost, the lead time, and many other things. But what's next? Maybe spreading the word even more. What
Yeah.
else?
Yeah. For us, we are one of the, I would say, the leader in the cross-border logistics space. Right now we're in China. We have Vietnam in process. We're onboarding customers in the next 2 months. Our mission is to be in all the major manufacturing hubs. So no matter where you manufacture, right now our focus is in Asia. You could run your e-commerce business in the best cash flow model possible through Portless. Doesn't make it in Vietnam, China, Bangladesh, Thailand, India. We will help wherever you're manufacturing to deliver to your customer in a seamless local experience to your consumer while you having all the benefits of running the simple, better cash flow model. And that's what we're head down focused on. And we're onboarding, brands across the US, Europe, Australia, etc.
It's awesome. Before you go, as always, in every episode, I like asking the guests whether they have a book to recommend to the audience because I love reading, and this is a selfish question because I love getting new ideas on what to read next. So, do you have any recommendations for me and the audience?
Yeah, and it's the two books I honestly constantly recommend, and I do it because I consider them therapy books. So any founder, any entrepreneur, there's so much difficulty in starting a business, and I think I've said before, our superpower is being almost like naive and stupid. If you knew how hard it was, very often people wouldn't do it, but we're stupid, so we do it, and it's great. I mean, stupid, naive, and then we build businesses, and but I think as we build businesses, we never realized how hard it was going to be and I think for me, reading Shoe Dogs, which was one of them, um, it gives you perspective where Nike, one of the most famous companies in the world, a company that growing up, I thought never had a blimp in like they must have been perfect from day one. From day one, they're the best company in the world. And then you're like, no, that guy almost went bankrupt 4 times. And even the more successful got, the crazier got. And you say, no, like the growth and the life of building a business is a wild roller coaster, and that's okay. That's part of the journey. And another book I recommend is The Hard Things of Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Also about like when starting a startup, there's gonna be hard stuff. So I always recommend those books for founders and entrepreneurs. It is normal, is part of the journey, knowing you're not alone, and great tips and insights to how to handle it through the growth.
Great books. I read the first one, not the second one, but I can say that it's one of the best books I ever read, and it was
Yeah.
really thanks to these podcasts because many people recommend it as well. How would you rewrite it if if he used Portless back then?
Such a great question. And that is when
Please
very
tell
often
me, sorry. Please tell me you haven't thought about it.
yeah. To me, it's again, the book talks about how the more successful Philip Knight Nike got, the less money they had. And I can't help to think of like if only Nike would have used this model back in the day. So the more sales they had, they would be able to move inventory to cash immediately. And the need for capital goes down tremendously. And I'll give you one story of a live customer that happened. So it was actually this past summer. It's a customer, it's a brand that does summer apparel. It was early July, and they reached out and they said, "Hey, this is the first time the introduction because someone introduced us. They knew about their pain. What was their pain at the moment? Their best-selling product in the summer had delays in production. It was only done. It was like July, maybe it was July 5th or something. If they would have put on the boat, it would have came in September. They would have missed the entire season of their best selling product. They were about to spend, I think it was an enormous amount of money to move it in bulk to their US facility, pay the import duties, and then by air, and then do the shipping to the customer all across the States. Or they would have to wait 2 months and miss the whole season. In our end, we said, hey, come to us. We were live with them within 3 days, Shopify app integration, inventory. They moved I think it was a truck for $100 to us, to our facility. So 2 days later, inventory's in our facility, and they were shipping it, selling it to their customers by, it was like July 8th. They captured the entire summer, or most of the summer, versus what they would have been mid-September. So that's an example of where production goes late, you can miss an entire season. But all of a sudden, even the idea of thinking when you manufacture and you have to add 60 to 90 days is such a difficult model to run. And that's why brands like this one that transition their entire business to us, you could simplify that. You don't have no longer delays in manufacturing makes you miss seasons. It could be Christmas, summer, winter, whatever it is. And I think cash flow is the name of the game. Publicly traded companies have lots of cash. Startups, even if you're doing 50 million a year, $100 million a year, don't have tons of extra cash. Using that efficiently, even through success and growth, is going to be one of your key factors of how you grow that successfully. And like the Nike book would have been rewritten of not him running away from creditors because his money was stuck on water. Money, the stupidest place money could be stuck on water. And we think we can help solve that.
I love that. Well, if you listen this far, you know by now that this is a no-brainer move for you and your business. So please go and check out Portless. If you are not already at the DTCinsider.com, please go there, find the episode, and you will see everything he mentioned in the show notes. Before you go, Izzy, first I wanted to thank you for being here in the show. You delivered a ton of value, and it was a really different episode from any other we have done because we addressed current pain points, very important ones that we have never addressed before. So thank you for that.
Thank you for
It
having
was
me.
a true pleasure to have you on. And before you go, I wanted to ask you, where can people go to learn more about you and Portless?
Absolutely. You can visit us on our website, portless.com. We've got case studies. You can reach out to us, book directly meeting with us. I'm personally very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I'm always posting content about supply chain, logistics, profits. Feel free to DM me, follow my stuff there. Would love the opportunity to engage with anyone that wants to learn more.
Awesome. Izzy, once more, thanks for being here in the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been super fun.